Hey guys, so like I was saying, there are going to be video directions today. There are going to be some very specific things you have to follow for class today. I'll just go ahead and read through the entire document, just so that way you know what you're supposed to be doing, you know what is expected of you, and what I'm going to be looking for on Monday when I come around to grade these practice projects, okay? So one of our classes, the 8th grade class, and I played the fishing video game up for a little bit to collect some data, collect some fish, and here are some of the fish that we got. We got the blue tang, which that's the species that Dory is from Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. A blue-faced angelfish. We have some royal angelfish, the forceps fish, a clownfish, and a few others. We caught a total of 11 fish, and for the sake of simplicity, it's going to be easiest to do this on one sheet of graph paper. If you have lined paper, that will work fine, but you'll see my example in a minute, and it was done on graph paper. The practice project is going to be due as a either prepare or a rehearse grade, probably a rehearse. That is a quiz grade. It's going to be due as a homework grade on Monday when I come back. All right. So for the project, you need to find the mean, the median, the mode, the range, both quartiles, and the interquartile range. You're also going to need to make your own histogram. You'll need to make your own dot plot, and you'll need to make your own box plot. On top of all of that, you need to make 2 complete sentences. Actual, full, and complete sentences that explain your data or make some observations about your data. So this video is going to intentionally be kind of long, and you're meant to watch the whole thing really only if you have a lot of problems or if you're confused about a part of the project. Okay? Otherwise, this is going to be a very long and drawn out process. So if you want, you can go ahead and pause the video or stop the video and just do the entire project on your own. You should all end up getting the same answers for all of these. You should all get the same mean, the same median, the same mode, all of it. If you're getting different answers, that means somebody is wrong. The only parts that should be maybe a little bit different would be the graphs and your 2 sentences observations. Otherwise, everything else should be pretty much exactly the same. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and face the camera at my paper so we can go over it. Alright, so I've got my paper all set up. As you can see, I've already rewritten the list of all of the fish and their sizes in inches from the project, and I put a checklist of everything that I'm going to need for my project. Alright, so you don't have to do all of this. I'm doing this so that way it's easier for me to walk you through how to do the project. So we're going to get started, and I'm just going to go down the list here, and I'm going to just hit everything one at a time until I get through to the end. So I'm going to start with the mean. And for the mean, all I have to do is I have to take all of these numbers, all of the data, and I have to add them together and then divide by however many data points I have. So I'm going to need to get a calculator, and instead of a calculator, I'm just going to use my phone because I don't have my calculator right now. Didn't bring it home today. But we've got, let's see, 9 plus 8 plus 10 plus 12 plus 9 plus 9 again plus 11 plus 9 again plus 6 plus 8 and plus 21. And I got 112 when I added all of those together. So step 1, we add them all together, and then I divide by however many things I just added. So I added up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 numbers. So I'm going to divide this by 11. And my calculator gave me, it looks like 10 2/11, or 10.18181818, all of this. But we wanted to, in the directions, it says round to the nearest tenth, so round to 1 decimal place. So when I'm rounding this 1 decimal place, I have to look at the number beside it. And using this number, I have to decide if I round up or down. So is this closer to 10.10 or is this closer to 10.20? Well, since this number next to the 1 is a 5 or more, we're going to round up. So this is going to become 10.2 as my mean. So let me set this aside. My mean is going to be equal to 10.2, just about. Okay? So that is a check for the mean. So I can go ahead and create all of this over here. The mean is about 10.2 inches. There we go. That's the first part of my project done. Next, I need to find the median. Well, in order to find the median, I have to put all of my numbers in order from least to greatest. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got my smallest number, which is a 6-inch long-nosed hawkfish. So I'm going to create my list down here just so it's out of the way. So we've got 6. My next biggest number, I don't have any 7s, but I do have 1, 2 8s. So 8 and another 8. Let me go ahead and rewrite this so it's all just box next to box next to box. So we've got 6, 8, 8. What else have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 fish that were all 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4 fish that were 9 inches long. We've got 1 fish that was 10 inches long. We have 1 fish that was 11 inches long. We have 1 fish that was 12 inches long. And we have 1 fish that was 21 inches long. So here's my data down below. Now I just have to find the median of this set of data. So I'm going to just be looking for the middle. So I'm just going to cross out data as I go, trying to find the middle. So there's my smallest, there's my biggest, smallest, biggest, smallest, biggest, smallest, biggest, smallest, biggest, and I've got 1 number left in the middle. That's going to be 9, which is my median. All right, let's go ahead and record that up here so it looks a little bit neater. So my median is going to equal 9 inches. And that's a check. Next up is my mode. Mode is just going to be the most common number in my data set, the number that repeats the most. And that's very clearly going to, again, be 9 inches. So my mode is going to equal 9 inches again. All right. After that comes my range. And my range is just going to be my largest number minus my smallest number. So for the range, I'm just going to do 21 minus 6, which if I did that correctly, I should get 15 inches. So for my range, I should get an answer of 15 inches. There we go. So range is done. Now I've got to find my quartiles. So for my quartiles, if you remember from just the other day when we did our notes on box plots, to find our quartiles, the easiest way to do it is to take your hand and just cover half of your data. So in this case, I'm looking for the lower quartile, meaning I'm looking for the middle of the lower half of my data. So cover everything up to the median, and I have to find the middle out of the left side. So the middle in this case is going to be this 8 right here. So my middle is right there. So that is going to be my lower quartile. And for my upper quartile, I just do the same thing but in reverse. I'm going to cover everything on the lower side up to the median and find the middle of the upper half. So in this case, the middle is going to be this 11 right here. That's going to be my upper quartile. So we've got our lower and upper quartile. My lower quartile is equal to 8 inches. And my upper quartile is equal to 11 inches. There we go. So we've got my lower quartile, upper quartile. Next is my interquartile range. And all that is I take my upper quartile and lower quartile and I subtract them. So for interquartile range, I'm just going to do upper quartile, which is 11 minus 8. And 11 minus 8 is going to give me 3. So my IQR, interquartile range, is going to be 3 inches. And that's all of the data part. For the actual project, which we'll do next week, you'll have a lot more than just 11 pieces of data. You'll have closer to 20 or 21 pieces of data. So do expect there to be more numbers next week. This is just a practice project, so there will not be nearly as many numbers to deal with. But next week, you can expect a considerably longer list. So that is going to be it for the data. Next, we have to start working on the histogram, box plot, dot plot, and my 2 sentences of observations. Now I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, and I'm going to start with my box plot. The reason I'm going to start with my box plot is I'm kind of already almost done. See, down here, I put all these in order, and just like I showed you when we took notes on box plots, I went ahead and marked my median, lower quartile, and upper quartile with vertical lines, just like they would be if I were doing this for an actual box plot. And I would just use a dot to represent my upper extreme and my lower extreme. So all I need now is a number line. So I need a number line that goes from 6 all the way up to 21. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to use some space over here, probably way up here, because I don't know how much space I need yet. But I'm going to go from 6 all the way up to 21, trying not to skip any numbers because I do need to include all numbers between 6 and 21. I can't go skipping numbers. So let's see, how long am I going to need to make this? We've got, let's start as far this way as I can. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So that's already more than long enough right there. All right, so I'm just going to have 21 over here. I'm just going to start counting down, and I'll stop when I have to stop. So 21, 20, 19, 18. Remember, when you're making these number lines, you can't skip numbers. It's fine if you're skip counting, like doing 2, 4, 6, 8, but in this case, these numbers are so close together that's not necessary. So we can go ahead and just count one at a time, so that way we have all of the numbers we need. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You don't have to go all the way to 1, but I had the extra space. So there we have our number line. And now we're just going to take our data from down here, and we're going to put it up here. So let's go ahead and put my 2 extremes. We have our lower extreme at 6 and our upper extreme at 21. So I should have a dot at 6 right here. And my upper extreme is at 21, way over here. There we go. My median is located at 9, so I should have a vertical line right here at 9. My lower quartile is at 8, so again, pretty close right here. And my upper quartile should be at 11. And already we're seeing something might be up with my data with how far this dot is. But we'll go ahead and finish connecting these by finishing my box, connecting my vertical lines, and then connecting my dots to my boxes. There we go. That is my box plot. But a good box plot should have a label. So I'm going to label this box plot. Let's see, what do those numbers on the bottom represent? Well, those numbers on the bottom represent the size in inches. So fish size or sizes in inches. There, all done. So that is my box plot finished. And just because it requires the same number line, I'm going to do my dot plot next. Your dot plot and your box plot should use the same number line. So I'm just going to take this 1 through 21 number line and I'm going to make it again. That's how your dot plots should come out to be. And I'm going to need more space above it, so I'm going to give myself plenty of space. And I'm going to make my number line here, going from, I believe we went from 1 to 21, so I'm just going to do that again. There we go, so 1, 2, 3, and once again, it's important to make sure that your handwriting is neat, make sure that you can see everything that you are writing, and more importantly, make sure that the teacher can see what you are writing. Make sure I know what numbers you put where. 18, 19, 20, 21. There we go. So we've got our number line down there all set up. Now we're ready for my dots. So again, for dot plots, all we have to do is take the number of numbers we have up here, and anytime we have a number that shows up, we put a dot above that number. So in this case, I'm going to try to alternate colors a little bit. Don't have all of my pens with me, but I have at least the basic 3, green, blue, and red. So we'll start with the long-nosed hawkfish. We'll start with the long-nosed hawkfish. That was 6 inches. So I should have 1 dot above the 6 to represent that I have 1 fish that was 6 inches. After that, we've got how many fish that are 7? None. So nothing over 7. We have 2 fish that were 8 inches. Therefore, I should have 2 dots above the 8. 1 and 2. How many 9s do we have? We have 4 fish that were 9 inches long. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 above the 9. We're then going to see how many 10s do we have. We have only 1 fish that was 10 inches. We have 1 fish that was 11 inches. And we have 1 fish that was 12 inches. And then finally, last but not least, we have 1 fish that was way over here, and that was 21 inches. And again, we're starting to see a pattern. Most of the data is all located in this one spot. But there's something way off over here. For some reason, we have one piece of data that's in the 20s, which is a lot different than all the rest of our fish. So that could mean something. Make sure you're thinking about that when we get to our explanations. But that is my dot plot completed. At this point, we need to start thinking about the more difficult graph to make, which is going to be our histogram. So our histogram, if you recall from our notes, is going to be the most difficult. We're first of all going to need to set up some kind of chart to make sure we can set up our intervals. So our intervals, we need to figure this out. We need to decide, what are we counting by? How big are the groups that we want to use? Do we want to do groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 5? How do we want to count this? Well, considering we're having to go from 6 all the way up through 21, it might make sense to do increments of 5. Maybe doing increments of 1 to 5, and then 6 through 10, and then 11 through 15, and then 16 through 20, something like that. You could also go ahead and do 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12, and you could be counting in intervals of 4. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to count in increments of 5. I'm just going to do 1 through 5 as one of my intervals. I'm going to do 6 through 10, because remember, we can't start at the same number. If we go 1 through 5, we have to start at the next number, 6 through 10. Then 1 after 10 would be 11.
through 15, because I still want to be counting by fives. After 15 comes 16. So 16 through 20 would be my next interval. And then we would have 21 all the way through 25. And those are going to be my intervals. Next, I need to figure out how many fish fit inside of those intervals. So, how many times, or how many fish are between 1 and 5 inches long? It looks like none of them are. So, that is an interval of 0 fish. Next, we're counting how many fish would be between 10 and 6. How many fish are between 6 inches and 10 inches long? Well, let's see. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Looks like we have 8 fish that are all between 6 and 10 inches long. We then count how many fish are between 11 and 15 inches. And it looks like we have 1, 2 fish that are between 11 and 15 inches. I don't think we have any fish that are between 16 and 20 inches long. And we do have 1 fish that was between 21 and 25 inches long. So we're going to need this interval table. And now we can start thinking about our histogram. Now remember, a histogram is going to look very, very similar to a bar graph, except the bars are going to be touching each other. So for starters, we need plenty of space. Right down here is fine. And we're going to create an L shape for our bar graph. So I'm just going to draw a line going down, and then draw a line going off to the side. Okay. Now, down here, we're going to put our intervals. And our intervals are going to go from 1 to 5. They're going to go from 6 through 10. And then we have 11 through 15. Then 16 through 20. And then finally 21 through 25. So there are my intervals right down here. And what do these numbers represent? Do these represent the number of the fish, or do these represent the sizes of the fish? Well, these numbers, 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, those will represent the sizes of the fish. So these are the size of fish in inches. And now we need this side area labeled. I'm going to draw nice, neat, straight lines, just tracing these grid lines on the graph paper going across, because I need to make sure that I have a list that goes up to 10, or goes up to 8. So just tracing this nice and carefully. I need this to go all the way up to 8. So that's 3. This one would make 4. And this next one is 5. And then 6. And 7. And 8. There we go. Just tracing this one because it came out kind of low. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And just because I have empty space, I'm going to fill in these last couple of lines, even though I know I don't have this many fish. So 9 and 10. And these numbers on the side, like I just mentioned, if these intervals down at the bottom represent the size of the fish, these numbers on the side represent the number of fish. And just so you're aware, and I also realized I forgot to label my dot plot. My dot plot, these numbers at the bottom represent my fish sizes in inches. Okay? For your final project, when we end up doing this, it should look almost exactly like this. You should have your 3 graphs, and they should be appropriately labeled. Just a spoiler, your title for all of them on the bottom should say fish sizes in inches, because that is what these bottom numbers will represent. And all of yours should have, for the side, should say the number of fishes. Okay? On that level, all of your projects should look exactly the same, practice projects and real projects. Likewise, your practice projects should all have the exact same data. You all are working with the same numbers, so you all should have gotten the same mean, the same median, the same mode, and so on. The only thing that might be different is perhaps some of you in the class didn't have as much space for your number lines, so maybe you counted by twos. And maybe your number line, you went 2, 4, 6, 8, and you had to put your odd numbers between gaps. Maybe you did that. Maybe some of your classmates did smaller intervals. Maybe some of you did do 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8, and then 9 through 12, and you did those smaller intervals. But for the most part, if you used the same intervals as me and the same number lines, your data and your project, or your practice project, should look almost exactly the same as this paper. And this paper is more or less going to be a miniature version of how your project next week is going to look. So let's go ahead and finish this up. So we have our number of fish in inches, and I'm actually going to switch to using a highlighter just so that way I can fill in this chart a little bit faster. This is an old highlighter. Never mind. Going to have to using pen. It is, as per normal, unless this is a highlighter. Oh, it is. And it's a much better highlighter. Good. So how many fish are between 1 and 5? It looks like 0, so I'm not going to have anything for this bar. So I'm just going to draw a line going across at 0. There are 0 fish that are between 1 and 5 inches. Next, how many fish are between 6 and 10 inches? We got 8. So I'm going to draw this bar going all the way up to 8. There we go. So we have this bar which goes all the way up to 8. So there were 8 fish that we caught that were between 6 and 10 inches long. All right. Next up, we have it between 11 and 15 inches. It looks like we have 2 fish. So we have a bar that should go up to 2 for this one. So let's go ahead and fill this in. Went up 2. Our next bar is between 16 and 20, and this one we caught no fish between 16 and 20 inches, so that stays at 0, just like before. And our last graph is between 21 and 25 inches. So this one, we have a bar that goes up only by 1. There we go. And that's it for my histogram. And that really only leaves the last part, my 2-sentence observation. And this is the one I can't give you right now. This is the one that I'm not going to write down on this paper, but for the most part, this is how your project or your practice project should look. All of you should have your mean, median, mode, range, quartiles, and interquartile range written clearly in a place that I can see it on your paper. Okay? You all should have a box plot clearly labeled and clearly created. All right? You should have a dot plot, and there should be a total of 11 dots on your practice project because that's how many data points we have. Your histogram should be relatively neat, and it should consist of multiple bars, okay? And you should have the sides and the bottoms clearly labeled. You don't necessarily need an interval table, but having one of these will help. And you don't have to have your data listed in order on your project, but again, having this information will make the process a lot easier. For your 2-sentence observation, these are just observations that you can make about your data, and this is the part where I want unique answers. I want you to say things like, I think that such and such fish was an outlier because it was a very different number or a very different animal. I want you to say, I notice my data is skewed left or skewed right. Or if you believe your data is symmetrical, you could say that. You could say, I did not do my box plot this way. I used different numbers. I noticed that all of these fish are this color, or all of these fish eat this, if you happen to be interested in marine biology and know a lot about fish. Anything at all, as long as you have 2 complete sentences about your observations for this data. And that is how we do this entire project. Again, this video was meant to be long. The reason the video was long is I didn't want everybody sitting down and just watching the whole thing, start to finish, and taking all of the answers. I made this video going from start to finish, so that way those of you who are really, honestly, truly struggling with this data, or truly struggling with this unit, have a chance and can get a good grade. Not necessarily so that you would be lazy, but so that way you would go in next week feeling more confident to do this project on your own. But at any rate, this is the paper I am going to be looking for on Monday. So please, don't leave this alone. Don't wait till the last minute. You saw how long it just took me to do this with you, so don't wait, and don't wait till the last second. Otherwise, you're going to find next week's project to be very, very difficult. Anyways, I'll see you guys when I get back.